de cette aire marine protégée. Merci.
Merci Sandra. Tony Emmett before mentioned that garbage patch that was as big as Texas, maybe as polluted as Texas, on the Northern Pacific. And David Rothschild, who's our next speaker, plans to sail through that. So I guess he's going to tell us a little bit more about what he expects to find there and how he's going to go there. David Rothschild.
Thank you. Well, it's a real honor to be here. It's the sleepy hour. I'm the last one on the panel at 5 o'clock, so I hope everyone, I'll try and keep this as interesting as possible. The sort of coffee's probably wearing off by now. So, I'll be honest with you, I didn't really know a lot about the oceans a couple of years ago. I had just got back from the North Pole, living on a frozen ocean for what was over 100 days. And the first thing that I saw was this report about the fact that there was a sort of 6-to-1 ratio of plastic to plankton in parts of our oceans. There was 46,000 items of marine debris, of which the majority was plastic, floating on or below every square mile of our oceans. And that to me was just shocking. You know, I mean, how is this going on? You know, this has become this sort of, this dumping ground, this very out of sight, out of mind environment that we just really, you know, weren't thinking about. And I was blown away. So it started, you know, I run an organization which tries to engage people and look at it from a slightly different standpoint, was how do we get people engaged on these issues? If we know that it's plastic, we know where plastic starts from. I'm a culprit. You've seen me just drinking out of a plastic water bottle. But there's plastic everywhere now. We're surrounded by it. It's whether it's in your toiletries, whether it be your, you know, your toothbrush, your pen. You know, plastic is surrounding us. This microphone, this clicker is full of plastic. And it's a pretty new phenomenon. And so it started to dawn on me that I really needed to find myself a kind of a pin-up, a plastic pin-up per se. And the one kind of item that really sort of stood out for me was the plastic water bottle. Just because it's absurd. I mean, we heard about sort of Ocean 2.0. This is kind of the dumbest of the dumb, Planet 0.10 things that we can really have. I mean, some of the statistics are just dumb. I mean, there's no two ways about it. It takes 3 to 5 liters of water to make a 1 liter water bottle. There's nothing smart about that. So this was it. It was like, all right, I've got my icon. And now the question was, how do we connect this throwaway item, this plastic item, with the oceans, with this accumulating garbage, these patches, these gyres that we're hearing about? And so I started going out there and thinking, well, there's a lot of people out there who are doing interesting things already. You know, there's reducing campaigns, there's recycling campaigns, there's reusing campaigns, you know, and people are talking about this. And so I really had to find a different entry point to kind of create a point of difference. So the idea was actually not about reducing, recycling, or reusing, but really it was about, and there's a little, hey, this guy, rethinking. And I say that because it's about rethinking plastic as part of the solution. At the moment, it's part of the problem. So the question is, how do we make it part of the solution? Because used correctly, not in a throwaway item, in items that last for a long period of time, it's quite a good material. Life-saving machineries in hospitals, in you know, these microphones, they could last for a very long time. What else are we going to make them from? So plastic can be a really good material if we rethink it. So what I wanted to do is, the start of this project that I was thinking about was making plastic, rethinking plastic in an interesting way. Not making it a sort of an enemy, but really making it part of the solution. And so to do that, I created an expedition that we'll be launching next March. It's called the Plastiki, named with some historic references. But the idea was really that I wanted to captivate the world, to think about our oceans, to think about this out-of-sight, out-of-mind place, to really put it at the forefront of people's minds. So I had my enemy, as it were, or my pin-up. And this image was one of the first images that I found when I was starting to source around, and it shocked me. It was like, all right, I've got that. Next I needed was a classic adventure, something that captivated the world in the late 40s, a really, you know, mind-boggling adventure, one that will probably never be replicated, only imitated. And that was the Kon-Tiki. So, as I said, the Plastiki was basically born. And so the plan is that in March of this year, and for the last 2 years, I've been working with a team of scientists to construct a raft, boat, really a boat, and that was important for me, to show it as part of the solution, that will sail from San Francisco, we'll work our way through the southern part of this eastern garbage patch, cutting across the top of Midway in the North Hawaiian Islands and working our way down through the Pacific atolls, down through Bikini, Gilbert, Fiji, ending in Australia. So it's a full trans-Pacific voyage on a boat made primarily of plastic bottles and smart plastic. So it's been a design challenge. And the way we started this project was to think about plastic, as I said, as becoming smart. Let's get smarter with it. We're going to continue to use it. It's not something that's going to go away. But if we do use it, let's try and use it in a smart, intelligent way. So the first place I was doing a talk with Google at the Google Zeitgeist, and I was sitting next to a world-renowned architect who was sort of steeped in biomimicry, nature-inspired design. And we sat on this panel, and I kind of whispered to him halfway through the panel. I said, "Have you ever designed a boat?" And he said, "Nope." And I said, "Perfect, you're my man." So I took him out of sort of buildings and fixed structures and said, "I want you to join me, and I want you to think about what a boat would look like if it was to be made entirely of these bottles." So we started on this journey, and we looked at the pomegranate for influence, the way that when it's a whole fruit, it's incredibly tough, but when it's individual cells, those cells break apart very easily. We looked at a lot of indigenous communities about how they used resources that they had available to them. So the simple thing of the Iraqi marsh Arabs taking reeds. One reed is, you take a reed and you make a bundle makes a wall makes a house. So we had our building blocks, which were these bottles. And the challenge is that everyone says, well, just melt them down. And then it's like, well, then we have a canoe, and it doesn't look as impressive. So the challenge is to keep them in their original shape. So we've been going through, for the last 2 years, this process of designing and thinking about plastics in a smart way. Influences from things like the Namibian fog-basking beetle. This little guy up in the top corner, he sits there and he uses his shell and the variant temperatures in the Namibian desert to create fresh water. So we replicated this system with the help of engineers to create a fresh water system on the boat that replicates the Namibian fog-basking beetle. I was doing a talk at a school and all the kids said, "What? You're going to have, how many beetles do you need to have a drink?" Which I thought was quite sweet. Obviously a lot. We're looking at the ways the solar panels interact. Now, we're clipping them off, we're creating messages. What I want to get across at this is fundamentally, there's a sort of a campaign piece behind this. So the first thing is we break this up into 3 parts. The first part is really what I call the skimmers. Those are people who might hear about this on the news, read a newspaper on the way to work, and then be thinking about what's for dinner, or am I going to get fired? And really this is about creating awareness of the Pacific. It's amazing, but a lot of people don't know where the Pacific is. A lot of people don't even know that there's a problem with our oceans. We talk about the blue ocean above us every single day. There's usually a very pretty lady standing in front, and she's talking about, outside today it's going to be da-da-da-da-da, and we look up and we go, oh yeah. But we don't think about the planet, the blue ocean around us. So the first stage is for the skimmers, we need to captivate them. The second stage is we've created a campaign piece. And very much at the middle of this is, as I said, what is it? It's beat waste. How do we do that? By rethinking waste as a resource. So the campaign piece is something that members of the audience can get involved in, organizations, institutions. We are creating a number of online widgets. We're working with a number of partners from the likes of NASA. I'm hopefully going to be working with great people on my panel here. I'll try and cajole them into being involved. But we'll be creating campaign pieces that will sit on many different platforms. And then finally, we're creating a legacy piece, and this is for the divers. These are the people who really get involved. And what does that mean? Well, it's amazing, but the ocean has a great capacity to throw plastic out. We get these microns of plastic. A lot of plastic is sinking, sitting on the bottom, but a lot of plastic is actually getting thrown out onto these islands throughout the Pacific. Midway is a great example. So now what do? You bury it, you burn it, or you just leave it, and it's accumulating in a great way. So the legacy piece is about innovation for change and finding solutions. So we're currently working with an organization that has managed to find a way of taking all the plastics, compressing them, and creating building blocks, materials out of these plastics. So there's a number of solutions that are available. As I said, this is really about thinking smart. When we finish the expedition, the vessel itself will be broken down entirely, and then we'll turn various components into clothing, into information pods, into, we got this solar sculptures, ways in which we get people to engage. Because the real thing about this is that we know what the problem is. It starts on land. It's an obvious problem that's having massive effects. And I think there's a real irony. I'm off to Japan next week to go and look at, there's a huge industry in plastic sushi. Anyone know about this? It's phenomenal. 80% of restaurants using plastic sushi to represent the very fish that might not even be there. I mean, it posed this question to me. What's going to happen in 10 years' time when there's no tuna? What happens to all that plastic display tuna? They throw it out, or they just repaint it and hope that somebody doesn't recognize it and say, oh, no, that's red snapper, you know. So there is really an amazing opportunity here. You know, I'm a small organization. We have massive global partners. We will be creating a platform. So if you have something that you want to try and get involved with us in some way, if there's something that you want to tell, it's a message, a story, a project, something that needs to get out there, there's a host, I couldn't fit them on the page here, from National Geographic, working with NASA on our systems, MIT for little underwater solutions, Clean Up the World, which is the activist piece, getting out there, getting onto the beaches and cleaning up. So it's going to be a really fun campaign, and I hope that some of you will get involved. And if you want to, just email us at info@adventureecology. Thank you very much.